Today I'm going to be giving you the first look at Antigravity, a brand new product by Google DeepMind, built for developers, and it combines the best of all worlds. It's both an editor, an agent manager orchestration system, and a browser, all in one product surface. So to start, we're going to open up the Antigravity app, and we're going to go through the onboarding. So let's click Next. Personally, I'm a light mode guy, so let's head over to default light mode and click that sign in with Google button. So you'll just use your normal Gmail account, click sign in, and this will pop us back into Antigravity. All right, so now we're logged in. We're going to introduce you to a key concept of Antigravity, which is that there are three main surfaces on which you can get your work done. The first one is called the Agent Manager. This is a place for you to manage and create agents across all of your workspaces. There is one Agent Manager window. Now, if you want to get into the code, if you want to take over from the agent, for example, and bring that task from 90% to 100%, you can at any point press Command-E or press the Open in Editor button. And this will take you into the Antigravity editor, which has things like tab, autocomplete, the agent sidebar, everything you've come to know and love inside of your editor products. And finally, there is a browser. This is a brand new offering that incorporates an agent directly inside of Chrome. So you can ask questions like, test my feature, and the agent manager or the editor will spawn a browser and click on the screen, scroll on the screen to basically test the products that you're building. So this is a really, really powerful way to bring all that context, that rich context of applications and docs directly into the agent. So we're going to go with agent-assisted development. What this means is the LLM will automatically decide if something is worth our attention. If something is very, very easy, the agent will just go off and implement it and come back at the end. But for some things that are more complicated, or if it has questions, it might ask us, hey, why don't you take a look at this, answer a few questions about your code base that I couldn't figure out, and then go off and execute. So it's a different way of working. This is my preferred way. So now that we finished onboarding, let's go ahead and get started on our first project. You'll notice on the left side, there is a sidebar, and we're going to go ahead and add a new workspace. We're going to be working locally instead of in SSH, so we'll press Open Folder. And let's create a new folder. We'll just call it Flight Tracker. And today we're going to be building a flight tracker app where a user can add their flight number, and it will directly integrate with your Google Calendars to basically add that flight information to your calendar directly. Build me a flight lookup Next.js web app where the user can put in a flight number, and the app gives you the start time, end time, time zones, start location, and end location of the flight. For now, use a mock API that returns a list of matching flights, display the search results under the form input. So it's going to start, and remember the setting that we chose for the agent to be making decisions on the user's behalf? Because we chose that auto setting, this means that the agent is capable of running terminal commands on our behalf without our approval. Now, if this command was something a bit more sophisticated, we want to build that trust with you as the user, and so we'll obviously notify you to approve or deny that specific request. So we'll go off. It looks like we want to run create next app, and the agent will now start doing work on your behalf in the background, but you can always check in on its progress. And one of the really, really cool features for Antigravity is this notion of artifacts. So if you click the right sidebar, and this is available both in the editor and the agent manager, you'll notice that the agent is putting together artifacts. These are markdown files for the agent to sort of track its own progress, do research, and even generate findings. We see that the agent is keeping its own task list to keep track of its progress. And this is something that you can also follow along with. We have instrumented the Antigravity agent to work with three main artifacts. The first one is the task list, which you saw, and the other two are important for users to observe and approve. The first one is called an implementation plan, and this basically specs out some of the research that the agent did, and it will give you a report of what it's going to do prior to actually going off and making changes to your code base. And finally, there's a walkthrough, which happens at the end of an agent's task, and it will communicate what it did, as well as some of the verification steps it took to sort of prove that it completed it. This might take the form of screenshots, or terminal commands that it ran, or unit tests, or heck, maybe even a PR description, things of that nature. And so it looks like our agent has done some research, and we're now going to open up our implementation plan. And you'll see this looks pretty good. It's putting together some components. It's telling me a bit about the styling, some of the ways that it's going to verify that it did the work correctly. This all looks pretty good to me. So now it's going to go off and start implementing all these files. It'll keep track of its progress in the task list, and you can follow along, or you could even go get a coffee and come back. It looks like the agent finished the code generation part, so now it's going to actually run the dev server so that we can check this out locally, and it wants to launch the browser. So let's go ahead and press setup. You'll press install extension. So let's go ahead and add this to Chrome. So what's really cool about Antigravity is that because of this browser integration, it can actually test the code that it just wrote all on its own. So here, we just generated a flight tracker, and now with that blue little cursor, it's moving its cursor around the screen to actually test our application. And in this case, it's adding in American Airlines flight 123, it's testing some invalid states, and it's basically going to deliver us a couple of screen recordings and a screenshot in our walkthrough report. So let's click review, and we can see what it put together. It tells us a bit about the features that it implemented, and importantly, how it verified that the results were actually correct. So let's head back to our home. We call this the inbox. This is where you can spin up new conversations and check in on your progress across all your different agents, across all your different workspaces. And so now we're gonna start 2 parallel tasks. And the beauty of Antigravity is that you can have the agent do work for you in the background while you focus on maybe a more complex task in the foreground. Let's have it do some research. So we wanna hook this up to live flight data. So let's ask it to look up the Aviation Stacks API. I already have an API key if you want to test with curls. Look up the documentation and make sure you use the curl responses to get the interface. Let's make this app look a little bit more polished by giving it a logo. The beautiful part about being part of the Google DeepMind ecosystem is that we have direct access to Nano Banana and the latest image generation models directly inside of the product. So let's ask our agent, design a few different mockups for a logo for our app. I want one that's more minimalist, one that's more classic, one that's clearly a calendar, and any others that you think might fit. I want to use this as the favicon for our app. So let's head back home. Oh wow, it already looks like it's done with the logos. That was very, very quick. And you'll see that it generated, let's see, 4 different types of logos. I really do like the look of this classic aviation style one. So let's tell the agent to implement this one inside of our project. I like the global flight tracker with aviation theme. Add this as my favicon. And I actually should probably tell it to update my site title as well, since I think it's using whatever came out of the initial generation script. So let's go ahead and tell it to do that as well. And you'll see that we are sending it as a pending comment, which basically means the agent can take into consideration at some good stopping point in the conversation. So here, it already got started working on the favicon, but now it's also going to take into account that we want to change the site title. And we didn't even need to babysit the agent. We could just leave it and leave some comments and come back, and it takes it into account. It's smart enough to know when and how to inject this into our conversation. So we'll head back home, and it looks like now our Aviation Stacks API research is already done, and it's written an artifact for us to review. And it's done all this research on what the Aviation Stacks API can do and what data it returns. And what's really cool is you can scroll through the conversation if you want more detail on how it arrived at this conclusion. And it did a Google search to basically figure out what is the Aviation Stack API, what is the docs URL for this, and it went out and actually read those pages to put together this research. And I also love that because we gave it an API key, it's able to literally run the curl requests and get sample data so that we know with very, very high confidence and very high trust that this is correct. So this implementation plan looks pretty good. Let's actually tell it and leave it some comments. So just like a Google Doc, you can highlight text, leave comments, and just say, use the key I gave you in the .env.local. We'll scroll through the rest. And looks good to me. Implement this in a util folder so that I can apply it to the route. Don't change the route yet. Press submit. Great, now let's hop back over to home. And now we're gonna go check in on our design of the favicons. It looks like it's updated our favicon. You'll see it now in the tab. We should probably remove the white background at some point, but you kind of get the idea. It's able to do this work in parallel. So now we're sort of multi-threading our brain across these 2 different projects. And you'll see that this Aviation Stacks API util is almost done. Great, so our agent has notified us that it's ready for review, and it looks like it created this new file, aviationstack.ts, in our utils folder, and it looks like it used a lot of the research that it did before to make sure that this is correct. And let's now hop into the editor so that we can really use this new util. We could ask the agent to do this, but I want to show you some of the features inside of the editor. We'll head over to where I think the route is, and you'll see all this logic for mock flights that came out of the original generation. And we can go ahead and delete all this. The editor is already suggesting that we replace our mock data with our live data. So let's go ahead and press Tab to accept this suggestion. We're going to press Tab again, include the import, and now let's just make sure that the rest of our UI is using these new type declarations from the API as opposed to the mock data. So we'll go into page TSX and we'll start poking around. Looks like we'll need to change the shape of the data. So instead of flight, which is the mock API schema, we are going to use the one from the API itself. It's called aviation stack flight data. Because the agent has context over all the files in your code base as well as the internet documentation that we retrieved earlier, we can just tab and change all the instances in our UI of using the mock data to using the API data. Now that this migration is complete, let's head back over to the browser and just make sure that the app actually works with this new live data. So we'll type in a real flight. Looks like American Airlines Flight 100 is taking off from JFK and landing in Heathrow. So our app seems to be working. Now, let's put a bow on it. We want to be able to add this flight into our Google Calendar. Let's ask the agent to do this for us. For each flight result, make the entire card clickable to open a Google Calendar link with the flight information, notably the times and locations. Test this with the browser and show me a walkthrough when you are done. Again, we could let this task run in the background, but this product is really mind-blowing sometimes, so let's actually watch it side by side. The agent will also show you what it's thinking about while it's doing its work. So here it's saying reviewing clickable items, it's starting to map some of the flight data, and now it's going to go off and read some of the files that are relevant for this conversation. It looks like it's implementing the Google Calendar integration, and the agent divides things into sections so it's a bit easier for the user to follow along. Of course, you can always get into the nitty-gritty by going to the editor and showing all the steps. So it looks like it's done, and it's now going to the browser and actually testing this feature. So when the blue border is visible, this means that the browser is under the agent's control. And here it's testing out American Airlines Flight 100 and can move the cursor to click, and now you can see we are able to add this flight to our calendar. And now that the agent is done using the browser, it's going to put together a walkthrough. This is the third and final artifact to show us that it is indeed done with the task that we requested. And here you can see sort of some of the features that it implemented here, the Google Calendar integration, and that it verified using American Airlines Flight 100. And let's head back over to a browser. We can try this feature ourselves. We'll come in here, put in American Airlines Flight 100. Looks like data's flowing correctly. And hey, it looks like it generated a calendar event for us. So let's head back over to our editor and let's commit this code. And there's a nice little button here to just generate a commit message. Again, this is context aware, so it's using your conversation history in addition to the files to come up with this commit message. This looks pretty good. Let's commit it. There you have it. We just built a new app from scratch in just a few minutes. And we believe that this is the new way for devs to get work done. Reviewing artifacts, managing multiple agents, and getting tasks over the finish line with an AI-powered editor. The Antigravity team is already hard at work on what's next, so stay tuned for future updates. I'll catch you all in the next one.
A lot of agent demos focus on how easy it is to build a new front end from 0 to 1. But any experienced developer knows that it's not nearly as easy to use an agent to take that front end from 1 to 100. You have to take screenshots of the current state, try to explain the desired change with prompts, and hope that the agent understands what change you actually want to make on the overall page. That is a frustratingly slow iteration loop with the agent. Let's say that I ask the agent to build a new web page based on this Figma. The agent is able to navigate to the Figma page, take a screenshot, implement the web page to the best of its abilities, and then take a screenshot of the implementation. It's pretty close, but not quite. Instead of trying to prompt the agent to focus on certain incorrect elements, we can just open up the screenshot artifact and leave visual comments as if this were a design tool. The agent takes these selections and feedback into account to make the necessary modifications with much higher precision and accuracy. This process should feel a lot like working with another experienced developer or designer. Antigravity helps you truly bring your ideas to life.
We know that writing code is often not the primary time sink for front-end or full-stack developers. The much more mind-numbing tasks are clicking around and typing the same things over and over to test the functionality or to make sure that your site is responsive to different screen sizes. This is why, in Antigravity, there is such a focus on closing the loop between the editor and the browser. The agent will verify its work within the browser, iterate accordingly, and then report on its results. For example, if I ask Antigravity to modify this website to have a contact form, you'll see that in its implementation plan, there is a full section on how the agent will verify its changes using the browser. After making the code change, the agent can click, scroll, or type to test its new feature. In the final walkthrough, it not only reports that it completed the verification, but also inserts screenshots and recordings. With its browser-in-the-loop verification, Antigravity provides a new way for software engineers to build, leading to a whole new era of front-end and full-stack development.
Any professional developer will tell you that context switching is one of the biggest reasons for lost time. Let's face it, we would love to block off a few hours to focus solely on the task at hand, but more often than not, there's some urgent bug report or one-off analysis request or some other task that interrupts the flow. Even a simple task can incur high switching costs. We've all been there. So while we made sure Antigravity helps accelerate the task that has your utmost focus, we also made the process of delegating simple tasks to a background agent as smooth as possible. In the manager, you can have multiple workspaces preloaded, so you waste no time switching environments to the new task at hand. Then you can stay in flow with your main task. The agent will come back to you periodically if it needs your review or approval for an action. Seems like the agent has finished its work and I need to review its walkthrough. Task complete. We made it easy to delegate to background agents without changing the view to your current task at hand. It takes a little getting used to, but soon you'll find yourself with more deep thought time on the problems that matter.
While agents are continuously getting smarter, they aren't perfect and they obviously cannot read our minds. In fact, we found that a lot of AI-generated slop is a product of underspecified tasks, leading to agents finding themselves in rabbit holes. Most AI development products don't make it natural for users to provide feedback to set the agent off on the right path, or to provide structured, pointed feedback on the results. This often leads to more prompts spent trying to get the agent to correct itself for the last 10% than to get the initial 90% of the way there. With artifacts, we've made it much more natural to review the work of the agent, leave targeted feedback, and correct it before it goes sideways. Let's say I want to add this field to my contact form. As expected, the agent goes out, does some code-based research, and comes back with a plan before starting to implement. This plan is most of the way there, but upon review, I want a couple of changes. I can leave comments on it like a standard Google Doc. The agent takes those points of feedback to update its implementation plan, which I can simply approve once I'm content. I can even leave comments on the resulting code changes to touch things up at the end. This should feel a lot like working with another developer, PM, or whoever else. Sometimes a little nudge goes a long way.
Antigravity is primarily a platform for professional developers. And at the end of the day, we want something that works for us. While vibe coding sounds great in theory, we know in practice developers can't just completely vibe code an entire large existing codebase. There is tons of value in an agent-first view to parallelize work, especially code-based research. Instead of trying to smash an agent-first view and an editor-first view into the same window, we made them separate windows and optimized the handoffs. You can instantly switch from manager to editor or editor to manager, and the state is synchronized between them. This works even if the editor window starts closed, so you don't have to manage a bunch of open editor windows. The editor comes built in with tab, command, and a lot of the AI functionalities that you can trust as you polish code. With Antigravity, you still have a full IDE at your fingertips. You don't have to choose between managing asynchronous agents outside of your IDE and managing synchronous agents inside of your IDE. It just works.
Let's be clear. We don't want to generate a bunch of code that is AI-generated slop. No one builds large-scale systems or fully fleshed out products with slop. This is why, in Antigravity, there is such a focus on agents generating their own plan of verification, executing that plan, and then reporting on its results. For example, if I ask Antigravity to refactor this class as so, you'll see that when it generates an implementation plan, there's a full section on how the agent plans to verify its change. Specifically, it'll run all these unit tests that it found and make sure it passes. After making the code change, the agent makes sure to run the planned verification. And in the final walkthrough, it reports on the verification. If the agent made a mistake in its work and the verification fails, it is able to detect that and iterate autonomously. We pride ourselves on tightly coupling the polished UX of Antigravity with agents that you can truly trust.